Today we have Jamison Pluis. Jamison is an ex-professional Ironman athlete, 8:28 Kona, sub-3 marathon, lots of crazy things, and we're super excited to have him on as an OptiMobility coach. And today I'm just going to pick his brain, understand more about his journey, as well as his current studies with his doctorate program in Hungary. And you're going to get an inside look to the brains of a high-performance athlete at that peak level. That's also now backtracking, working down, and doing a doctorate as well. So Jamison, super excited to have you on. How did you get into high performance athletics, like the whole A to Z, potentially at what age you started, and kind of what led you down the rabbit hole of Ironman, going to Kona, all those things. So yeah, just take it away.
Well, I'd say starting off in my younger life, I was like a swimmer.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I was nowhere near the level I wanted to be, and it was the same case for running. I like track and field, cross country, same thing, like doing all this training, but still not achieving the level that
How old were you?
Oh, probably like 10 years, 10 to 12, kind of in there, like 10 to 13, kind of those years. I was doing a lot of swimming and running, but
like 3 times a week, 4 times, like hours a week?
Yeah, I mean, like every day, something like swim practice, track practice, cross country, like.
And you just like jumped into that at 10, or was it something that you started early on, just so that people can get an idea of like what to expect if they want to perform at that high level? What are the prerequisites in terms of your younger years?
Well, I mean, for prerequisites, everybody takes a different path.
Yeah.
To that level, but like for me personally, starting swimming at 7 years old for swimming, but not competitive swimming until maybe 10, and then doing that all through my teenage years. But it was about when I was 15 years old, I got my first road bike. The local shop kind of introduced me to triathlon, so I figured, I should probably give this a try, because like individually at the 3 sports I wasn't very successful, but maybe if I put them all together I could be. And I would say that was the case. And then obviously I really did love the sport from the very beginning, because there's just something about a sport where what you get out of it is directly what you put into it. So it just required huge amount of hours from the beginning, and I love that.
Yeah, from the beginning, like how much were you training, would you say?
Let's say my first real training weeks in the summer of 2016 were probably about 2 hours a day, I would say, like 1 to 2 workouts a day.
Pretty manageable.
Yeah, super manageable. Obviously that was built up over time.
Yeah, of course.
To much bigger hours.
Which we'll get to. Yeah.
Yeah, but because I was already doing sports every day, anyways, adding a second workout into my day was like not that big of a jump, really. It just was pretty natural.
And at that young age, you have that time to give somewhat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Swim practice in the morning before school, and then, whatever, ride the bike or run, or, I was kind of mixing in my school sports that I was doing with it, like just say track and field would be my run practice. And then that would be coupled with a swim in the morning before school.
So it started off 2 hours a day at around 15, 16?
Yeah. So I would have been turning 16 that year. And then.
What did it kind of like ramp up to at the peak of training? Per day, per week, and at what age?
Well, very quickly, that became over 20 hours a week for me, because that year I joined the Manitoba Triathlon Center. And so that was the provincial team for the, you would call it like junior elite racing. So that's like the draft legal triathlon. And then that progressed to about, just say 25-hour weeks on average in my professional career. But I mean, that's on average. There was months where like every week was 30 hours.
Wow.
So
Lots. And for the normal person, that's not something realistic, you would say. Unless you're going into the pro route, like how realistic would you think is, as you're working towards your doctorate, is that something, and that sort of volume and professional endeavors, is that something you want to maintain and layer that onto a career? Or like, how are you finding the balance with maintaining or continuing to level up what you were once putting in?
Well, the hours, I would say, were exceptionally challenging. Like, I kind of had a taste of that during my university degree, being in school all day, but then also somehow having to get 3 workouts done on top of the school and the studying, eating, all that stuff. And so if you are limited for time, it is possible to do, but it just takes a huge amount of dedication, focus, work. Like if your heart's not in it, it's just not gonna happen.
What would you say are some of the biggest problems that people run into when it comes down to high performance endurance athletics? Like, let's say for one of the viewers specifically, or the viewers specifically, they don't have time to cook, clean, do all these things, and they're constantly in ruts. So what are some of the, I'd say, overarching topics, like you just said, your heart has to be in it, that you would say are non-negotiables for people if they want to, stack up and level up their fitness?
Well, I think the main thing is just to never lose sight of the goal. Like, because with my sport, like, I made a commitment at 15 years old that I wanted to be a professional athlete one day, and that was 7 years straight of every day pretty much dedicating my life to the singular focus of achieving that goal. And so, just say for somebody else, maybe their goal isn't to become a professional athlete, but maybe it's to complete an Ironman, or just, develop or attain a certain level of fitness, or just like enjoy like the endurance training. Like you have to just kind of remember why you got into it in the first place and let that motivate you. And then you have to be prepared to like fail a little bit, because it's a very humbling sport. It's a ruthless sport. You're gonna have, a lot of bad days. Sometimes the good days are few and far in between, but that's all kind of part of the process of really like, being an endurance athlete.
Very cool. You've kind of got a small taste of working with us in regards to what we're doing over at Optimability, and I was just curious, what did you find interesting? Have you learned anything cool, or like, what are your thoughts on the whole process so far, being a coach? Oh, before you answer that, this is Joao. Hey, Joao. How's it going?
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Ignore us. You can just walk through and everything. Nice haircut. Yeah, I got one too. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll just re-ask the question again. But it was now that you've started Optimability and you kind of have a small taste of what we do. You're handling some of the training for our high performance athletes and people getting into Ironman, and pertaining to a lot of things we're talking about. Kind of what interested you in? There you go. Yeah, interested you in the role initially, and what do you like about what we're doing, and what are you most excited about in regards to what direction we're moving in?
Well, I like the idea of, other people who are getting into the sport to like, have some of the same experiences that I had, and like find the same enjoyment in it as I did. And so there's a lot of, I don't know, just say traps or like ruts. You can like, just say you're somebody new just starting out Ironman, like there's a lot of mistakes that are easy to make very early on that are going to, make the process, very unenjoyable. And so like I would have liked to have had somebody, just say like myself early on in my career to help me through this. But now like that's kind of my job is to help people through it, and like try and make the process as smooth as possible, because there's a lot of mistakes that you don't have to make.
100%. And that's just in fitness, right? Like we're not even talking about the nutrition mistakes or like supplementation, which we'll dive into here in a second. Like How do you think having all of that in one place benefits someone stepping into the sport for the first time?
Yeah, so, being part of a program like Optimability, you're, you're getting basically all the most important aspects, taken care of for you. Like diet is a huge part of it.
Like whole foods, not overcomplicating it.
Yeah, not overcomplicating it.
A lot of diets out there.
Well, and just say something as simple as your protein requirements as an endurance athlete. Like you look at bodybuilders, and you have to basically eat the same way they're eating.
Yeah.
But then the outcomes are pretty much
very different.
Yeah, but you still require huge amounts of protein, and I think for most people on a regular diet, just say they have 3 meals a day and a couple snacks, like you have to completely transform your plate compared to what you were eating before.
And why would you say that is? Just because of how much muscle you're breaking down over and over and over again? Or like what's the main consensus? Because a lot of people just say, oh, eat more carbs to fuel you through those runs, but that's kind of really short-ended advice.
Yeah, well, because endurance training is a huge amount of work, like in the sense of like your muscle is contracting, hundreds or thousands of times per hour to propel you forward, and over many hours a day, many days a week, many weeks a month. Like that's just a huge amount of physical strain that your body has to not only recover from, but then improve. So without the correct diet, it's just impossible.
And have you noticed in the past where if you're not sleeping well or training according to plan or what works best for you or eating bad or off schedule, the entire delicacy of performing at that high level kind of goes away?
Absolutely. Like that's why you need a program like Optimability to keep you honest in all aspects of training. Because I've known lots of athletes where just say they have their diet dialed in, but their sleep is terrible.
Right.
And even with just almost a perfect diet, you still can't improve if your sleep is bad, and vice versa. Like
vice with everything, even mental health is a big part, right?
Bro,
stress, cortisol, like all those things.
Yeah, the mental part is huge because like the endurance is like a very long-term goal. Like if you want to just say get good at something like a marathon, like that's not something that you're going to do in 3 weeks or even a year. Like it can be 4 years or 5 years, and like so you have to be mentally prepared to commit yourself. So
coming from I know one thing that's a big fad that we really strive and eliminate is actually supplementation. So I have a theory that based on somebody's blood work, well, not theory, but science proves that based on somebody's blood work, you can find out discrepancies as well as gut health as well, and probiotics and enzymes. But apart from those characteristics, there's a big thing in the industry where people over supplement. Whereas what we're trying to do is cut down the amount of supplements somebody is taking. What are kind of your thoughts on, maybe some supplements that you were taking in the past and how you think the right approach is to move forward with that?
Yeah, so I think, the goal is to have your diet cover as much as your dietary needs as you like possibly can. That's certainly important, but just due to genetics or lifestyle, maybe just say like endurance training, there's just certain things that maybe you don't absorb as well or you burn through a lot quicker that require supplementation, on top of your diet. And so, while I was training full time, I was doing a lot of blood work and pretty consistently, like, despite having a very dialed in diet, like eating huge amounts of red meat, lots of vegetables, dairy, like everything, like the full spectrum of nutrients, I was still deficient in a lot of areas.
Where were you deficient with the blood work that you did?
Well,
it was like a full panel, right? So LH, FSH, free test,
everything.
everything.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like what, like 90 markers around about? Or how many were you testing back then?
not quite that much.
Okay.
More just the basic stuff, and then obviously, testosterone,
Yeah.
B12, the thyroid hormones on top
Yeah.
of that. The main deficiency I had was, with my red blood cell count
Okay.
and my ferritin. So my iron was down, my red blood cells were down. Like I was getting pretty close to being, well, I think in the technical sense, I was probably anemic for a long time. But, that's just because my diet was not quite up to where my lifestyle was at. Like I needed to be more serious with the supplementation,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right. Just because you're degenerating your muscles and you're exerting them so much that your nutrition wasn't keeping up with that level of exertion to some extent, or like, did you pinpoint the root cause of that?
Well, I'd say there was two issues. So one is more genetic, like I just simply wasn't absorbing iron that well. And that's despite eating lots of red meat. Spinach, although spinach isn't like as good as red meat, but just like covering, most of the foods that contain iron, just simply not absorbing it as well. And then the second mistake, which is, one of the mistakes that people need to have me in their lives for, is just the being honest with myself, like continuing to do huge training days despite knowing that something was wrong, like being tired, worn out, not recovering, instead of, taking these physiological indicators seriously and respecting them and doing something about it, just continuing on the way I was. So
what your body was telling you, you were better off listening to it, taking a step back and not going as hard in with training as opposed to just powering through.
Absolutely. And so instead of just, accepting that something wasn't correct, I continued on and then pushed myself to the point where now, okay, I have to actually go to the doctor.
Wow.
I do the blood tests. I get the results. And it was not surprising to me, to say the least. But that required, I had to do an iron IV, actually. Mm-hmm. So, it's a pretty expensive process, to say the least, that probably could have been avoided.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would you say for people that neglect any type of data testing? They won't do a blood panel. They won't, maybe they won't even have a Garmin. Like what do you think they're sacrificing by leaving off being able to decode your biology in a way to the side and just being ignorant and focusing on training goals? Do you think that that's a smart approach, or just curious on your thoughts about not using data testing at all?
Well, every so often there's a generational athlete that can, ignore all of those things and still be extremely successful. But in all probability, you're not that person. And if you're going to take, your health and fitness seriously, then you have to be dialed in all aspects. Diet, you gotta have your metrics. You gotta be tested. You gotta do your blood. You gotta do everything. And that's, the most comprehensive way to improve yourself.
100%. Well, really cool. Now we're going to start tying into like your doctorate a little bit, but with your undergrad in molecular and biochemistry, was that right? Or what was the exact?
The designation was medical molecular biochemistry.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And now you're doing your doctorate in Hungary. What are, let's just say, off the top of your head, the coolest things that you've learned that have probably confirmed your knowledge before stepping into your doctorate with your Ironman training and experience, now being in this position where you're kind of working from the top down, which is performing at the highest level and working at all the little intricacies. So I'm just curious to pick your brain on, we've had some conversations about what those things are, but just a couple of things that have come to mind recently with your studying that you found really interesting.
Being somebody who really takes your health seriously, you're your life outcomes are just so much more vastly improved. Like just say when we're working in the anatomy lab, like you can tell, when you're working on a cadaver, somebody who was healthy and somebody who wasn't, like just the sheer level of like interstitial fat around the organs, or like
visceral fat in a way, or is there some?
Yeah, just like, all fat where it's not supposed to
Right.
be. Even just the level of muscle mass, it's totally different in people that are serious about their health.
So that's our time here with Jameson today. Really excited to have him on the team and, pick his brain a little bit further. He'll be on more podcasts. You'll see him more around. And we're just really excited to keep working together and building a really cool ecosystem where this is the standard at OptiMobility. And this is what we want to uphold, is the highest level of performance, and being able to bring that to life for day-to-day people and helping them overcome the same obstacles as well. So if you're curious on listening more to what Jameson has to say, just head over to Martin's channel. He'll also be doing an interview that will be posted shortly. All the best, Jameson. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.